I would like to ask my fellow council members their indulgence in moving up an item which is practically the last one on the city council agenda.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Ken. I assume there's no objection on the part of the rest of the council. The item we will be hearing, wait till I pull this out, guys,
Member comments.
is member comments, and it's the proposed Bay Trail extension and Temescal Creek Bridge. This is Councilmember Fricke's item, and he has promised me that he will not be speaking too long, but the way we'll handle this is he will make his statements, and then we will hear from the public who has come to talk to us. Councilmember Fricke.
Thanks, Mayor Davis. I wonder if we could have the laptop connected to the grate. So. Okay. So for those that are not familiar with this idea, I'm going to quickly go through the proposal. The proposal is to construct a bridge across the freeway. That's the picture of the bridge. This is the Courtyard Hotel. And the reason that this bridge, I think, would be valuable is because this is a aerial view of the larger area. Courtyard Hotel, Interstate 80. This is the Bay Street area. These lines here are the railroad tracks. And this blue line represents a bridge that the City Council has set aside money for. Once that bridge is built, it will provide access for people like at Emeryville Village to go down this way and to get to Bay Street. I think that it would be an advantage for those people also to be able to get to the Bay Trail, to get to the Emeryville Marina. Uh-oh, I just lost my... And so what I suggested is this bridge across the freeway, and I did a survey, an online survey, to ask if how many people use the on-ramp and do they support building this bridge and having a trail. So the results of the survey are that 332 people responded. This is not a scientific survey in that it was not random sampling. Of those 332 Emeryville residents, 58% supported converting the on-ramp, 37% did not support it, 5% had no opinion. And I also broke down the percent that used the ramp. I asked how often to use the ramp, never less than 1%. These were the percentages, or using the ramp more regularly, 40%. And then I looked at the correlation between one's use of the ramp and whether they supported or not supported. And as you know, it would come as no surprise that those that use the ramp regularly are not in favor of this, and those that don't use it very regularly tend to be in favor by 85% or by 80% respectively. So I put this on the agenda to see if my council members have any questions. I would like to go forward with this proposal, and the question, and we're spending $15,000 to do the traffic study when the ramp is closed temporarily. So that's basically it. Do you have any questions?
Well,
Members of the public are here.
Ken, could we hear from the public, or do you want to make a
well, I wanted to
statement
make
first?
a comment at this time, and that would be that if the idea of exploring the closure of the ramp could also include building a bridge that would leave the ramp there. We don't know that we have to necessarily close the ramp. If we could build a pedestrian bridge, we could accommodate everybody's wishes, because we do need to have improved walkability in the city. We don't have good connections, and we are building the other bridge, so I think it would make sense to study the idea of having both the ramp and the bridge.
Yeah, I think that that makes sense, except that it has been made clear to me by various regulatory agencies that that it would be next to impossible to put a path next to the ramp because of the East Shore State Park being there. So that's why I went with this survey.
Well, that's the reason you do a study. You find out whether it's possible
Oh
or
yeah,
not.
I agree. Yeah, we need to study it. I
Okay.
agree.
Okay, could we hear from the public? There's a sign-up sheet over by Maurice Kaufman. Kind of line up and sign your name.
I'll
Mr.
sign
Lutz.
up afterwards. Hi, everybody. Joe Lutz, 33-year resident of Watergate in Emeryville. Thank you for allowing me to speak on this subject.
Speak up, Joe.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
5 minutes.
Okay, we
Sign
got
up,
to.
please.
Wow.
First, I would like to read a record, into the record, a letter from the Watergate Board of Directors. I know you all have it. 7 respected members of our community. Dear Emeryville City Council members, the Board of Directors recently voted 7-0 to oppose any closure or change to the Powell Street on-ramp to the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge. The Board of Directors respectfully asked the council to seek other options for pedestrian and bicyclists and discontinued the idea of closing the convenient and safe vehicular access route to San Francisco. Thank you again for your consideration. Signed, Robert Blaine, President. I will also say that Tim Sutherland, long-term manager of Watergate and highly respected and a friend, also agrees with this. While discussing this letter with members of the community, I was made aware of an email by a council member expressing distress about the vote and asking for pre-notification of any discussion on this item. This is at best interference with the community business and can be construed as intimidation, a tactic that seems to be in favor with certain council members. If this continues, we will immediately initiate a recall petition and vigorously circulate it. The citizens of Emeryville have dealt with arrogant elected officials before, and some of us are starting to reach our limit. Much of the discussion regarding this ramp closure revolves around Watergate, but Emeryville Peninsula is much more. We have the city's largest park, 2 very large marinas, 3 large and busy restaurants, a large hotel, several small business complexes, a very large office tower complex, a sports fishing enterprise, a very busy gas station, a police station, a fire station, the city's largest residential complex. And I may have missed some, hopefully someone will pick that up. These businesses and residents lead to, and I have a list of things, I'll just cover a couple, folks coming and leaving the area for work, parents visiting their kids, kids visiting their parents, daycare workers, residential and business deliveries, restaurant goers, lunchtime and weekend strollers, park goers, etc. Basically, the peninsula is a small city cut off from the east by 4 intersections under the freeway, the only one of which is safe is the target of this proposal. There is a tremendous use of the ramp by the folks that live and work and visit our peninsula. With a right turn on red, a single lane, a slow approach, good sight lines for pedestrian and bike traffic, the on-ramp is one of the things that work well in Emeryville and one of the reasons we all work so hard to keep it. Even though it seems we have a wonderful situation here, there are some issues. 1, the council's inability to keep the AC Transit link to the peninsula and the loss of PPP shuttle make the informal carpool a critical link for the peninsula commuters. The closure of this ramp will disincent these carpool drivers and dump single occupancy vehicles on the freeway. The success of retail and, number 2, the success of the retail and residential rebirth of our fine city has a large increase of traffic on 3 of the 4 mentioned intersections. There are many times at the intersection of Powell and Frontage Road going east for shopping or shortcutting to Oakland have been clogged. The intersection involved in the proposed closure has seen a minimal increase, if any. Pardon my speed, I'm trying to keep the 5 minutes. The merge onto the J-hook for the freeway is very treacherous. This is number 3, particularly during commute and lunch hours, and is the site of many accidents. The road servicing the peninsula is mostly one lane until it hits the business park. On some days, there are long lines of vehicles coming from the restaurants and parks, causing delays of vehicular traffic. This causes delays for our fire and police services trying to make their way to the east side of the city. And finally, there have been times when the San Francisco on-ramp has been closed where traffic has been backed up to the market. With this in mind, imagine closing the ramp. There will be a large line of cars stacked up trying to take a left on the frontage road to get onto the J-hook. They will be weaving through cars that are stacked up going into Bay Street and shortcutting to Oakland, dumping many times the vehicles now onto the J-hook merge lane. Number two, some cars will work their way through the business park trying to get to the freeway that way, clogging the entire complex and putting the pedestrian-friendly area at vehicular risk. Additionally, the large number of workers from the office towers that use the current ramp will opt for the other freeway entrance, further causing gridlock. With cars queuing up on both left turn lanes, Powell will become one-way all the way, subject to long lights and intersection gridlock caused by folks not being able to go east, and some folks in the south lane trying to cut across lanes to pick up the J-hook. Number four, any requirements for police and fire on the east side are put at risk, particularly during commute, lunch, and shopping hours. There can be no doubt that there will be substantial traffic delays on West Powell. I had an email from Ken, and I'm not sure it was, that was dated on the 15th, and he mentioned something about many thousands of cars going into using the city for a shortcut, and talked about safety. So, is that 1 minute?
Nope, that's it, Joe. Do you
you
want
wanna
to leave
submit
your remarks?
Yeah, you could submit
sorry?
your comments.
You want to leave your remarks with the city clerk?
Yeah, I will do
To include
that.
in the record?
I will do that.
Thank you very much.
It's the best part.
Joe, I don't think you signed in because you went right up to the podium. Thank you.
My name is Woody Clint. I own 4 properties at Watergate. I've sold real estate there for approximately 8 years. I'd absolutely be opposed to closing the ramp for many reasons. One obvious reason is it was to make a tremendous congestion coming down Powell Street. We have the only place left that the cars actually flow freely that go to San Francisco. You'd have to turn left at the Shell station, go up and get on 80, which is already unbearable. From a safety point of view, if we had an accident, or we happen to live in earthquake country, or anything happened and 80 was blocked off, basically, all emergency services would be blocked off to even get there. That ramp could be an emergency route. Additionally, I have met more people personally at Watergate than are in this survey. I read the survey. Survey does not represent anything that I know of any of the people I know who want that ramp closed. The people at Watergate, there's over 2,000 people that live there. Over 2,000. In the Watergate Towers, there's thousands and more people. To close that ramp, in my opinion, is irresponsible. And for someone who's paying taxes, I don't want to pay taxes for a ramp. I like bicycles. I think they're wonderful. And I don't want to pay for a walk ramp. People walk there every day. They go from Park Plaza, they go from Emeryville, Bay, and they walk over and back and forth, and they're not having a problem with it. Thank you very much.
My name is Fran Quittel. I live at Watergate. I served on the board, the Watergate board. I'd like to address John Fricke personally from the perspective of being a Watergate resident. I would like to propose that you include in your study 332 Watergate residents, which I have no idea where the residents came from that you polled, but I really propose that you include 332, an equal number of Watergate residents. I cannot, in any set of circumstances, fathom the logic of your proposal. I think that you show an absurd misunderstanding of the economic and safety implications of your proposal. They are, in my mind, your proposal is, in my mind, ludicrous and voter unfriendly. I think it fails to recognize economic, safety, and traffic issues that concern the growth of the city, the safety of its residents, and the ability of people who live here to earn a living. Thank you.
I'm Joyce Jacobson. I live at 4 Admiral Drive. I want to address 3 things briefly. The first is who is served by the on-ramp, and we've already had quite a lot of discussion of that. The secondly is protecting the wildlife in the marsh, and then just very briefly the survey itself. There are groups of citizens in Emeryville who are not able to bicycle and are not able to walk long distances. These would include young children, they would include aging seniors, they would include persons who have chronic illness. They would include persons who have physical limitations. Now, I fall into two of those categories. I won't say which, but I value my automobile. And there are some of us who, if we didn't have an automobile, we'd really be very restricted. I go to San Francisco frequently. As often as I can, I use public transportation. But there are many times when public transportation just isn't workable. Nights, weekends, there are various times when I must drive my car, and I actually drive to San Francisco probably about twice a week, as it turns out. I want that on-ramp, and several people have already mentioned the safety issue, and that's extremely important to me, to have a safe way to access the freeway. Secondly is protecting the wildlife. There was a study done in 1978. It's called The Crescent, an environmental assessment of the Emeryville Crescent by the Bodega Bay Institute. One of the points that is made in their summary and their recommendations is that the freeway protects the marsh. And that's my opinion of it. It protects the marsh because people can't get into the marsh. One of the things they say here very briefly is the freeways that surround it have granted relative freedom from human intrusion. Thus, its geographical position and its surprising ecological variety have produced the single most diverse wildlife habitat within the bay. And obviously, the wildlife has adapted to the automobiles. However, if we bring humans in there, whether I understand that the proposal is that the Bay Trail would go next to the marsh, not in the marsh, but nonetheless, it would still put people, give them a lot of access to the marsh. And I don't believe that that is useful in protecting wildlife. And finally, on the survey, I think there's already been quite a lot of comment about the survey, but I did not feel that it was a neutral survey in any way. I felt that what I read was a promotional piece, a piece that had been put together to promote a certain idea. So for those three reasons, I want the ramp kept open. One is for my personal safety and for all of us who need to drive automobiles so that we have a safe access. Number two, to protect the wildlife, which I enjoy watching all of the time. And thirdly, I think the comments on the survey have already been made. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Norman LaForce. Speak on behalf of the Sierra Club as the Sierra Club's longtime leader on East Shore Park issues and also as Vice President of Citizens for East Shore Parks. Both organizations have expressed grave concern about proposals that would have any impact at all on the Emeryville Crescent marshlands. And that's because, as has just been pointed out, they're incredibly rich, diverse ecosystem that needs to be protected. They are protected by public trust rights that make sure that they could only be intruded upon for ecological study and the areas to be fully protected from human intrusion. Any proposal that would result in human intrusion into the marsh will be opposed by both CESP and Sierra Club. In particular, we're concerned that there still seems to be talk about possibly a trail along the edge of the crescent, which is in the crescent. And this would be on the upland portion, which is extremely critical habitat for the wildlife when the tide comes in, and this would be devastating to them to have a trail there. Another concern is that while this all looks very nice, the construction of any kind of bridge facility may require filling in and putting pylons or other bridge construction into the marsh, which would be simply impossible to do and would be opposed by Sierra Club and CESP. And the reason why the regulatory agencies have made it clear there's not going to be any intrusion into the marsh is because of its protected status and critical habitat. The last issue I think that's very important that needs to be considered which hasn't really been brought up before in any of the discussions, is an issue of light pollution. Light pollution and lighting at night can have a very critical impact on wildlife that rest at night, because it allows the predators into the areas where they believe the sleeping habitat, the sleeping birds and other creatures believe they are safe when they're not. A bridge such as being proposed could have significant light impacts, because it would have to be lit constantly all night. Already, frankly, and I have to say I was asleep at the wheel on this many years ago, the light from all the development that's adjacent to the Crescent on the other side of the freeway, nevertheless, is you can almost see stuff in the Crescent now at night. I mean, in the middle of the night, you can see it because of all the light from the theater and everything else. So adding to the light pollution may well be impossible for, if you do it, it may well create impacts on the wildlife. Therefore, anything that goes forward with this really needs to be understood. There's not going to be any kind of trail or any intrusion into the marsh at all of any type. And maybe if that can be worked out, fine, but I don't think so. And secondly, there's going to have to be a really thorough analysis of the light impacts, just as we did for the Gilman Street ball fields and other locations, because of those impacts of wildlife. So those are important considerations whenever you take up on this issue. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bream. I am a Watergate resident.
Would you adjust that microphone up so, because if you don't talk right into it, the people at home can't hear you.
Well,
Thank you.
do you think they can hear me now?
I think so.
My name is Bream. I am a Watergate resident. We had a gentleman cut short earlier this evening. I'm here to read the rest of his statement. Myth busting. The sponsors are concerned about safety. This is ludicrous. If this is a safety issue, it would seem that they would first work on the other intersections, which are much more hazardous to bike and pedestrian traffic. The dumping of a large number of cars into the business park and the J-hook merge lanes are not enhancing safety. Putting a large number of vehicles in the office tower environment is not enhancing safety. Putting East Emeryville at risk of delayed police and fire services is not enhancing safety. One of the most important functions of city government is the safety and well-being of its citizens. This proposal does the opposite. The main use is shortcutting. It is nice that Mr. Bukowski is so concerned about traffic on an 800-foot stretch of road west of the freeway. This will sure screw up the circulation in the city. I'm just reading this.
But Joe's still here.
But with such passion, you know? I mean,
Too bad he did not bring up earlier while we on the peninsula had to deal with the problem. Fortunately, the city solved that issue by putting a light on the office tower entrance. So, Ken, you're late to fix the problem, but throw it into the mix and see if us dumb Emeryville residents will buy it. But the more relevant answer is wake up. The entire city is a shortcut from Powell to Hollis to Bay Street. Are you going to close all these streets? Well, these are the salient points. We are not going to go into the rest. I must commend Mr. Fricke on trying to do good in doing something that makes everybody hate him. But for my money, he is taking a personal risk on our behalf. Now that he knows that this is not what we want, I'm sure that we will all like him all the more for trying his best. I thank you all.
Evening, council people. My name is Louise Engel, and I realize that there are, for myself, two issues here. One is the overcrossing, dealing with that, and that interface then with the use of the waterfront and its access. And I think many people are going to be addressing that second issue, so I'm going to be dealing with the first issue. Before I get into my comments, I just wanted to mention my credentials, if I may. From a professional perspective, I'm a member of the Institute for Certified Planners and have been so for about 15 years. And I'm a professional in the planning field for over 21 years. And then specific to this area, back when the Cypress Freeway reconstruction was occurring and the maze was being reconfigured and changes occurring there, I was an official representative on that community agency team that participated in that. So I'm quite well acquainted from that perspective. The other is I'm a homeowner in Watergate and have been a resident in the city for 15 years. So to address my first, the issue that I'd like to comment on tonight, and that is the overcrossing. And what I wanted to get to was what is the issue that this is trying to address? And I hear tonight the interest to provide a quick and easy access for people from the Bay Street kind of retail area and access easily over the freeway to the waterfront. And so that's one consideration. And so is the issue then, I would say, looking at the bigger community of Emeryville, then the issue is access to that waterfront area. And this is where I can bring in my personal experience. And in looking at the access, what is it that we're trying to do? What is the main issue here? Are there routes that already exist, and how functional are they? What is the ease of use of those routes and safety? What is the consideration when we end up bypassing retail uses and that kind of foot traffic, and then other considerations? So looking at the route, first of all, we're all, those in the Emeryville area, acquainted with using the sidewalks to get from Powell Street, Hollis, and so forth, underneath the overpass. For the section that is from, say, the corner of Barnes & Noble Street, right near the Bay Street there, to either bicycle it or walk it. If you bicycle it, it's about a 7 to 8 minute drive, bicycle. And walking, it's 12 to 15 minutes. And that's my own experience. And I base that on, I was actually for between 2003 and 2005 commuting by bike and occasionally walking to my place of business during that time, day and night, rain and sunshine. So, I have that experience, and I'm very well acquainted with the, what that means. So I would ask, first of all, in providing this really quick and easy access, which saves someone 7 to 8 minutes of bicycle time or anywhere from 12 minutes or more for walk time, how does that balance against, that kind of benefit of time, so forth, to the cost of a ticket item like an overpass that probably the very least is going to be $1 million, by the time you get through design and construction and maintenance and all those other issues. So I'd really like us to be aware of what benefits do we really want to derive from an overpass, from that, and looking at that factor. Then also looking at ease of use and safety of that route. Now, this is where I would probably echo many people who do walk or bike it, and that there is really a lot of need for improvements, numerous places, both separation between car, bike, and pedestrian, safety at intersection crossings. Basically, the cars challenge us. And if you try to get across, say, from the retail area over to the service station, or even right by the on-off ramps there, where there is actually the little pedestrian, you take your life in your hands. You really have to challenge the cars back. And then lighting, and as a safety issue under the underpass. During daylight, it's really quite shadowy, and it's not pleasant, and then along the street itself, as a bicyclist, there have been times when there are holes left from places where equipment beneath the street doesn't have its covering on it, and you're dealing with that. So there are numerous things that need to be addressed there.
Thank you, Louise.
All right.
Thank
and
you for your
have
comment.
my comments on paper there.
Yes.
for
We
you.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mike Cartmel. I'm a longtime Emeryville resident, longtime Watergate resident as well. First of all, I'd like to thank each of you council members for serving. I'm on the Watergate Board of Directors, and I know that the course of political discussion is not always easy or complimentary. I am
Can you
so
talk
proud-
closer to the mic?
I am very proud to be an Emeryville resident, and I'm very proud of you for serving in these capacities. The overwhelming tone of tonight's comments is so overwhelmingly negative that just in my natural sense of wishing to dissent, I very much wish I could support your proposal, Mr. Fricke. However, I cannot, because it is a very this is a very powerful asset, I think, for Emeryville, for Watergate, for the two marinas, for the Watergate towers. It not only does it speed up our access to San Francisco, what I think is important for all property owners over there and all residents over there and all the staff who work in the towers, but I think that in itself enhances safety, because without that, we're all condemned to the J-hook, and that is already overpopulated with cars. I also, as a bicyclist, you know, the streets there, the corners there, the intersections there are very well controlled. It could well be that there's some, you know, challenge going, the bicyclists, some bicyclists feel with respect to leading with cars that are using the direct San Francisco on-ramp. But quite frankly, I've never felt that way. But you know, I work in San Francisco, and I deal with those challenges on a daily basis, and I think we can all deal with those things relatively successfully. It's well lit. It's a very direct access. This new bridge is so indirect. I can't imagine using it for the purpose of getting to Bay Street or any of the other business areas on the other side of the freeway from Watergate. So, you know, and I further echo all the comments of the other folks who've been here before in opposition to this proposal. I think it's a problem that nobody knew we had that we're trying to resolve, and I think it's a waste of your time, and I think there are many more critical issues to deal with. But once again, I do thank you, and let me extend this invitation to you, Councilman Wachowski, on my part as a director of Watergate. I welcome your attendance at the meeting. I really look forward to hearing what you have to say. And thank you for permitting me to participate in this debate, and I definitely hope that you do something else with public funds than the silly bridge.
Just before the next speaker, could, just out of courtesy to everybody, could we ask that all cell phones and pagers be turned off, please? Would really appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm Virginia McNeil. I am a homeowner, rental property owner, and business owner in Emeryville, and I love this town. And I want to thank the people who preceded me for voicing many of the concerns that I have, so I don't have to repeat them. But one I would like to address in strong opposition to the closure of this ramp is that it would effectively shut down the casual carpool institution, which is a very environmentally friendly function, which has worked for years. Based on a conservative estimate of 150 cars carrying 2 extra riders twice a day, that takes 600 potential cars off the roads and off the bridge times 5 days a week. That's 3,000. That is important, I think, for us to look at in terms of environmental concerns. And riders do frequently take the Emeryville to reach the casual carpool. You know, another very environmentally friendly issue. This is an urban area. It is a fact of life that people do commute to work. There's really very little that we can do to get around that. And I think we need to continue to support an institution such as the casual carpool that makes that more rather than less environmentally impactful. Or, forgive me, the reverse. Anyway, thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is David Locicero. I'm a business owner here in Emeryville, and my partner and I own a rental property here. The engine that drives Emeryville's prosperity is composed of two things primarily: the city's central location and the ease of access to the highways and bridges. These are two reasons businesses and residents have chosen to live here, bringing revenue into the city's coffers. If the bridge access is closed, one of the main reasons for Emeryville's success is damaged. The bridge access is used not only by those living and working on the Emeryville Peninsula. That access is used by the casual carpool, by residents of the rest of Emeryville, as well as the surrounding communities. If the access is closed, traffic on Emeryville's streets, particularly around Powell and Christie, will get worse. Traffic on the highway will get worse, as the cars formerly using the access will be forced to use the Powell Street on-ramp, called the J-Hook here. I didn't know it was called that. And many of the casual carpoolers will effectively be forced back into their cars. Closing this ramp will damage the ability of its residents and businesses to gain quick access to the bridge and make traffic and air quality in and around the city worse. It's ill-advised all around. I encourage you to drop this proposal. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Fran Chapetta. I've rented in Emeryville for 3 years and have been a proud homeowner for 2.5 years at Watergate. If this plan goes through, it will cut off yet another commuter lifeline from Watergate to San Francisco. We lost our charter bus in 2006. We have no service from AC Transit, and cutting off this freeway on-ramp will effectively discontinue or minimize our casual carpool option. Now, I've never spoken in public before, so I don't know how to write a proper speech. Instead, I thought I would cut to the chase and just use adjectives to describe this proposed closure of the freeway entrance. Ludicrous, preposterous, ridiculous, frivolous, unconscionable, unfathomable, absurd, nonsensical, farcical, foolish, stupid, outrageous, and yes, Mr. Fricke, self-serving. What a waste of our tax dollars with no benefit whatsoever to the community as a whole.
So
just before the next speaker, so it's not clear, are you in favor of it, or?
Good evening, my name is Klaus Lang. I'm a homeowner at Watergate. I'm also an artist, and I would like to give you my point of view on the marsh. If you go to Wikipedia and you look up Emeryville and Emeryville Marsh, those are my pictures. And when I went in there and take these pictures, I had to make serious apologies to the birds. It is not a pretty sight when you go in there and look at it close up. Tide sewer comes to mind. And we know this because every now and then when they come in, the last time I've seen it was several years ago, when they came in with a helicopter and they put the teams out there and they pick up all the garbage, and the helicopter just picks out loads and loads and loads of that stuff. It's, anyway, looking up close, it's pretty nasty stuff. The birds, I love my, I'm a member of the Audubon Society. I'm a bird watcher, so every time I'm driving by there, I'm driving to San Francisco, with pride, I'm looking at that marsh, except I know better. I know different because I had my feet in it. And it seems to me that why wouldn't it be possible to make a continuation of what we have right now between the Berkeley Marina and the Emeryville Marina, where we have the frontage road with two-way traffic and a bicycle path and a footpath, a running path. That's just going to one lane. Why is that not possible? Possibly because we need like 3 feet from the marsh. I would propose let's take 6 feet from the marsh, and we can sell them. Isn't this the California State Park land?
Yeah.
I'm sure that we can convince them that for cleanup purposes, you need a better access so you can bring in vehicles and clean up more often. You also could have a footpath and possibly even with a couple of observation platforms for people to actually see the marsh. Most people haven't seen these birds. They don't even know what's going on there. And it's at some time when I'm driving into San Francisco and I see an entire family of Canadian geese with their ducklings right next to the cars. I mean, it's just a wonder to behold that it actually happens right in our vicinity. So I propose that we widen that thing just a little bit, and it can be an absolute win-win situation. Yes, bring the bridge across if you have the money for it, and combine it with a footpath. There should not be any problem with that. Thank you.
Good evening. Jeff Tate. With my partner, I own a condo in Watergate. Most of what I wanted to say has already been said, so I'm just going to summarize the points. First thing is, to steal the word redundant from the questionnaire, why would you build a redundant bridge when you have a perfectly good underpass at Powell Street? I've walked back and forth to Bay Street or to Powell Street Plaza any number of times, and I've never had any problem with traffic. Secondly, the carpool's been mentioned. Well, I've been a driver in the casual carpool occasionally, and I tell you, I'm a confident driver, but getting across 5 lanes of traffic into a high-speed moving lane when everyone's fed up in the commute in the morning is a challenge I don't relish. I suspect that if the carpool survives at all, there'll be a significant increase in accidents as people have to make that very difficult crossing. The final thing is, if you've got money to build a bridge and you want to increase connectivity, Ashby Street seems a more logical place to put one because there is no crossing between University and Powell. You know, you'll move the crossing, what, 50 feet down or 500 feet, however far it is. Instead, put it at Ashby and then you've got more connectivity. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Larry Lionel Young Jr., Watergate resident and also Park Avenue District Advisory Committee member. My position on the ramp is basically not for it, mainly because you have Watergate Towers, Watergate residents, people who actually live on their boats who sometimes decide to take a car and go to San Francisco. You have the Hilton Gardens Inn. You have some Chevy's customer patrons who all of a sudden have to decide to go and make a U-turn to come back around and go to San Francisco. In this case, they wouldn't be able to do that. I also bicycle in Emeryville often, as well as throughout the Bay Area. And I actually thought about it, I said, wow, that would be kind of pretty to actually ride over the freeway and look at the people passing by. But then I really thought, I said, well, I'm doing just fine passing by going through Circuit City. But then when you think about, oh, that's nice and pretty, oh, it's Emeryville. I mean, but it still serves its purpose that's going underneath. So that's the major concern is A, whether or not it's necessary. B, I tend to bicycle just fine. And the major reason, which was mentioned earlier today, is the vast amount of people who rely on that access to get through. And with that being done, as mentioned earlier, it could cause a little congestion in Emeryville. Thank you.
Sorry.
Just
Yep.
don't
Hi.
throw it.
There we go. I'm William Severs.
joke.
Oh, okay. I'm William Severs. I'm a realtor in Emeryville for the last 24 years. And I think, well, you know, it's just about all been said, but I just do want to make a little comment about the survey. This survey was sent out in the Watergate Hatch Cover, a publication which often gets recycled very quickly. And I called almost everybody on my mailing list, almost all of my clients, and asked them if they even knew about this issue. 98% of them didn't even know it was happening. And I said, you know, and those that did probably responded the same way I did when I saw the survey. I said, nobody in their right mind is going to support this. Why should we bother? And it hit the recycling can. And I was shocked to find out a few days ago that this was actually being brought up and that money was going to be spent on it. And you know, the adjectives that were spoken before, I think, pretty well sum up. It just seems so absolutely incredibly ludicrous that this would, that this could actually be happening, that I think most people are asleep about it. And I think you can see from the number of people here at the meeting tonight that people are starting to wake up. And I can't see why, I think I can speak for most of the people that, in fact, I can speak for 100% of the people that I spoke with, which represent my clients and the residents at Watergate, in saying that they don't want their money spent this way, not even on the study. And as far as I mean, it makes about as much sense. You know, the survey does not represent the people who live and work on the peninsula. It would be just as sensible to take a survey out on the peninsula for the people who live in the Triangle to talk about their traffic patterns. It just makes no sense at all. So anyway, and the congestion that will occur at the corner is just going to be unbelievable. And if people are environmentally concerned, think about the carbon footprint of all the cars sitting and idling and then trying to make that left-hand turn. If you have about 100 people trying to go to work at once, you're going to be seeing cars sit there. There's going to be gridlock. They're going to be sitting there for 5-10 minutes sometimes. It's going to be, you know, just nuts. So naturally, I'm opposed. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, my name is Larry Telford. I'm one of those people who live in the marina on their boat and, believe it or not, do use the ramp every day. And I do take carpoolers in with me every day, so I get on the carpool. Needless to say, I am opposed to the proposed closure. I'd like to offer a couple of other things. This proposal has a cosmetic appearance similar to the University Avenue grade separation for bicyclists. That's really not the case because that access, there was no pedestrian or bicycle access at University. That's very much not the case here. At Powell Street, we have very good access. To the extent there are problems with bicyclists feeling perhaps lost in what admittedly is a complex intersection, I think the problem can easily be solved by modest signage. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Susan Hinchman, 7-year Watergate resident and homeowner, 3-year member of the Emeryville Housing Committee, casual carpooler to San Francisco, and recreational cyclist. I learned a lot this evening about safety and the environment, and I fully support the issues raised this evening on all of those topics. But the reason that I'm here tonight is simply as a citizen to be heard for purely selfish reasons. My issues are issues of convenience. I go to work every day, I've got to be there early, 5 days a week, and I can get over the Bay Bridge in 12 to 15 minutes. The closing of the on-ramp will likely take an additional 10 to 20 minutes tacked on to my commute. Frankly, I'd much rather spend that extra time styling my hair, or color coordinating my shoes. On a positive note, though, I would like to say that whoever's idea it was to add a second Watergate Express to the Emery go-round schedule, hats off to you. Thanks.
I'm Shirley Reeves, and I'm a Watergate resident, have been for 30 years plus, and it's at 2 Anchor Drive. And as all I can say is everything that's been said tonight so far, I agree with. I can only say this. We had very short notice on this. It was about, I'd say at the most, 5 days, and you can see the turnout. We now have notice in advance. Next time, it will be bigger, I promise you.
My name is John Cusper, and I'm here as a resident first, also as a business owner, representing 3 associations that do business in Emeryville. We've got over 300 contractors that come in and out of my offices in the course of a week. If we do not leave the office on Horton, coming off of Hollis, and coming up over the bridge before 5 o'clock, it takes 15 minutes to get over the bridge and under the viaduct to my home, which is on this side of the 80. If you put this ramp in, it'll take me the better part of 45 minutes to get a 5-hour commute done, a 5-minute commute done. I don't think that's right. Secondly, has the police chief considered the possibility that if we take and make a walking ramp from Bay Street down to the area where all the wildlife is, what kind of people are going to come walking over there besides the people that want to see the wildlife? Right now, you have to know where you're going to be able to walk across Emeryville and to get into our residences. If you show them a map that comes all the way across there, I think you're inviting a lot of trouble as well, and certainly a lot of work for the police chief. I'm definitely opposed. Thank you.
Are there any other citizens to be heard? Thank you very much for coming. Do we have comments from the council?
Yeah, I think it's real important that we got people out here. I think, you know, at least we're in a city where we don't try to do something first. We check with the residents and find out whether it's okay. And I think that's what we had to do, and that's what we did, and I think we got the message.
Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to make a couple comments. I've always tried to, I live at Watergate. Dick Cassis is my name, and I've lived there for 33 and a half years now, hard to believe it. I work in Oakland, so I don't use the San Francisco on-ramp on a daily basis, but I entertain myself over there a lot, so I use that a lot, and I like it, and I appreciate having it. Because I do work in Oakland and drive, I do have to do the J-hook every morning, and I have to fight my way across to get around to 580, and that certainly is no picnic, and I'm well aware of that. I've always tried to, over the years, let people know what I'm thinking about things so that when I come up for re-election, you can decide whether you want me sitting here or you don't want me sitting here. And so I'm going to tell you real honestly that that when this idea was first discussed, that I support the idea, and I want to tell you some of the reasons why. We have had incredible numbers of complaints about safety issues for both bicycles and pedestrians trying to get through the Powell-Christie interchange. I mean, it's really a very problematical intersection, and when you say fix it, the fixes that we can do realistically are fairly limited. We've done a lot of what we can do. There's more that we hope to do to make it better. Another big issue is that, you know, part of our job is to look at the town as a whole. And I knew coming in that Watergate residents, my fellow immediate neighbors, would not want this. But we have to look also and say, we've got a bunch of people that live on the east side of Emeryville that are not the rabble-rousers you're concerned about, sir, and that aren't out to break into our units, that we have to remember the biggest park that the city has is on the marina. And we've got a bunch of people with kids on the other side of Emeryville that really have a difficult time to get out here. We have yet to succeed in getting Emeryville to put bike racks on, so people that have smaller kids that bicycle can't come out and use the marina, or even if they don't want to bicycle, if they just want to come out and walk, it's a very difficult place for people in East Emeryville to get to. So, you know, we have this unusual city divided by 2 freeways and a bunch of railroad tracks, and with a tremendous amount of traffic. And it doesn't matter, honestly and frankly, what we do, we're always going to have a tremendous amount of traffic. We're at the base of the Bay Bridge. We have major retail centers that support most of the other activities that we do in this town. And so we're going to have to try to figure out a way to accommodate everybody in town. And one of the real problems is how to get people from the east side to the west side and people from here that want to go back the other way. And the reason that I supported it on the first blush is because, as John mentioned earlier, we are going to build from behind Novartis, which used to be Chiron, into Bay Street. There's going to be a bicycle pedestrian bridge there. We've only got part of the financing now, but that's something we're going to go forward with. So it seemed to make the most sense to find a connector then that got over the freeway that lined up with that, to make that something where you're encouraging people to get out of their cars, don't drive out to the marina, walk or ride your bikes. So I just want you to understand that those are some of the issues we face up here, is that we've got real problems with getting people from east to west and north and south in town, that we're trying to figure out the best way to do it. We've got major crowded intersections that are very difficult to deal with, and we also have to try to find a way that to deal with the casual carpool issue. And I just want to have one last thought about that. Everybody's right. It's a great system. But I want to also tell you, as somebody that works in a daytime job for AC Transit, part of the reason that we don't have AC Transit to San Francisco from the marina anymore is because the ridership counts were down so badly. And why is that? It's because a lot of people are getting into the casual carpools. It's a great system, but it impacts the number of people that are willing to get on a bus. And we also saw that after we lost AC Transit, now we've lost the Pacific Park Plaza Watergate bus, which is horrible to lose that. So we're kind of isolated out there, and then you're forced to be left with a casual carpooling. I happen to think there might be that possibility that there's some good that could come out of the loss of the casual carpooling if the people on the peninsula ride the Pacific Park Plaza Watergate bus or AC Transit or whatever. Fine, no, that's fine. I'm just telling you what I think, and you just told me what you think. And this is all part of the dialogue. But, you know, we are isolated out there, and to get bus service is something we very much want to do, but frankly, those services, unless they have enough bodies in them, are simply not going to be there. So those are the reasons why I supported this at the beginning. I'm certainly listening loud and clear to my immediate neighbors, and I'm going to consider the impacts on the whole city as we go forward with this. So I really appreciate everybody coming out. I wanted you to know, booze aside, that I appreciate hearing from you and that you took the time from your busy evenings to come do this. We weren't trying to slide anything by this, and this is a very preliminary, and I mean that, a very preliminary look at whether this thing makes any sense at all. We've just heard from a whole bunch of people that said it doesn't. So thank you for that.
Ruth.
There's many things I could say, but I'll just keep it brief for the sake of the meeting. There's one speaker who spoke tonight about an overcrossing at the Ashby interchange, and I just wanted to take this opportunity to let people know that there is a redesign in the works for the Ashby interchange that, among other things, would make Emeryville accessible from I-80 going in both directions, where you can get off onto Shell Mound. And part of that calls for bike ped overcrossing with the reconfiguration of Ashby interchange. There are design issues that are still outstanding related to the reconfiguration of the interchange, but this is something that's very important to Emeryville that we're moving on. And I just want to say real quickly to sit tight if you can after we're done with this, because there was a delegation that went to Washington last week that I was part of that advocated for some federal funding for different projects, and that was one of them, and I'll be giving a report on that. And Melody Dice, who's standing in the back, school board president, was part of that delegation, and she has some comments. So I just want to encourage people to stay to listen to that, because the Ashby interchange was one of the things that we asked help for.
Mayor, and just before you go to John, I meant to put one thing at the end, but this is to put people on notice. I want everybody to know, and this is something that's not publicized much, Caltrans, in fact, is going to be closing the very on-ramp we're all concerned about over a 6-week period starting next week, and it's going to be on and off. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about here. They're redoing the drainage system for along the bay, and so they've tried to put out some information, but I just want you all to realize that when that happens over this next 6-week period, starting next week, that has nothing to do with the city council or anything that we're doing. Okay?
John, did you have any comments you wanted to make?
No, but I'd be glad to answer questions about how I did the survey. I didn't intend for it to be a scientific survey, and I think I even made that explicit. It was just a way to get a little bit of a pulse on where our residents want, so that's...
Right. I'd like to make a few comments. First, I join Councilmember Bukowski in thanking each and every one of you for coming out here tonight and sharing your opinions of this issue. As Councilmember Cassis says, this is very early days. We are studying the situation. I have gone along with the money to do the study, but intuitively, and my gut feeling is that to close off that on-ramp is a serious mistake. This is not just because of... I'd hate to clear the room, you're such a good crowd, but let me make my statement. I believe it's a serious mistake for a number of different reasons, and I'm going to start off with something that is very important to all of us, and that's economics. One of the young ladies that was up talked about the cost of the bridge, $1 million. Let's talk about $13 million for the bridge and close to $3 million for the path. This is a serious chunk of money for a small city. Now, we have a major capital improvement program planning. Interior, the Bay Street overpass from Novartis to Bay Street, the Greenway. We have things that we know we can accomplish and we can do. For us to go down this path of taking on Normal Force and the Sierra Club and the Audubon Society, BCDC, the list goes on and on. I tend to be relatively pragmatic. We want to focus, I'm saying we want to focus on those projects that we can do reasonably, that we have some control on, and somebody made the comment, we don't want you spending your time on these kinds of projects, which essentially, if you really deconstruct them and analyze them, the likelihood of that bridge over that freeway in the near term, and I near term 5 to 10 years, or the long term, is a real long shot. I don't think we should use public money for the long shots. Let's focus on what we can do to improve the quality of life for the entire city, but let's be a little intelligent about what we're doing. We will continue examining the cost on this, but you have been alerted. This is not going to go away. You hear certainly from 3 members of this council that seem to be very positive. You all can count. 3 out of 5 is a majority, so be alert. Vice Mayor Ruth Atkin made a very important remark when she talked about the Ashby interchange. And as soon as we finish this discussion, we'll talk about some of the successes that they had in Washington, D.C. We have got to be prudent with the way we use city funds. And we have got to, I've heard a lot of bashing of the business community from members of this council. We have all got to remember that 80% of the revenue that comes into this city comes from the commercials and the business. Now, if we want to drive business away, as other cities have done, that's a choice. But you are the voters here. You keep an eye on this council because you don't want your police and fire force reduced to 20% of what it is now. We enjoy some of the best public service in the state of California. I, for one, want to keep it that way, and we want to address all parts of this city who are important, the residents who live here, the people who work here, and God bless the people who shop here, because they contribute to our public service. I'm not going to beat this to death, and I've spoken way longer than I usually do. Again, thank you, and please wait for Vice Mayors Ruth Atkin and School Board President Melody Dice's report on the trip to Washington, D.C. This was an informational item, and I thank you. It certainly was
Can I make a
informational.
follow-up comment here?
Mayor Davis, can I ask?
No. We got to move along.
The entire council voted to study this bridge, and John took the initiative to put it out there and ask the question. So, I mean, we would have went ahead with it had nobody done the survey and no one checked with the public to see what the issues are. So, you know, I don't think it was wrong. I think the idea went out there, and I think we got the public response, and that's part of what democratic government's about. But I don't see anybody attacking the business community or you know, it's certainly not an attack on anybody, just to find out what people think about something. So I do thank you for coming out, and it's very important that we got this.
Vice Mayor Atkin.
Mayor Davis, can I just ask a question? I don't want to spend city money frivolously. Is it your feeling that you do not want to study? I mean, that's what I'm hearing, that you don't want to spend the money for the study. So.
You have to listen a little more carefully.
Okay, I'm sorry.
We are embarked on a study, and I was very much in favor of this study because there's a misconception. $1 million to put a bridge over the freeway, not in our lifetime, not in this particular era. Can I have the approval of the council to move along? We've beat this to death, but don't fall back on your laurels. It is not done, it is not over, and keep your eye